Good evening, Guardians, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Short Pause Presents Tower Talk. This is episode number 31. I'm Ben. On the other end of the microphone there, that's Brent. You know who we are. We're here on behalf of Short Pause. www.shortpause.com is the website. You can follow us on Twitter at the Short Pause as well. So Tower Talk is our Destiny-focused video discussion series. Brent, where you and I hop in here, we talk any and everything in the world of Destiny. We have a damn fine time doing it. How are you this evening, fine sir?
You know, man, I spent a lot of time checking out the Anthem loading screen, and I gotta say, it hasn't
everybody else
hasn't quite replaced my Destiny fix yet. So, no, man, I'm good, dude. I'm just glad it's the weekend, and we got a lot to talk about tonight. Some cool stuff to talk about regarding supers and weapon balancing. And yeah, we were off last week. We didn't get a chance to do a show, but we're back, and it's gonna be good stuff, man.
Yeah. We have a jam-packed show this evening. In fact, it's been 2 weeks. So, I was out of town. There was some scheduling issues. There's holidays. There's been a lot of stuff going on over the last few weeks. So, apologize that we missed the last couple of weeks. But we're back on track now. We should be back to our regular schedule here. So, you can look forward to Tower Talk each and every week. And typically on Thursday. But, of course, Bungie has moved the weekly update on us 2 weeks in a row now, so they hit us with a Friday update this week. So we were going to do the show last night, but we're like, all right, well, we better move the show so that we can fit in this week's TWAB information. So we're back here on a Friday evening talking some Destiny, and like I said, we got a jam-packed show tonight. And just to digress on this for a minute, so so Anthem. So Anthem, the VIP demo or whatever is out today. So if you pre-order the game, if you are a Origin subscriber or whatever, there's a bunch of different ways you can get into this thing. If your friend has a code and he gives it to you, yada, yada, yada. So a bunch of people are trying to hop into the VIP demo today. Now, look, man, I get that this is like a beta, or it's not. Maybe it's not a beta. Maybe it's a demo. I get that there's this new thing. They're trying to get people onto their servers and test all this and yada, yada, yada. Like, I get all that. But at some point, enough is enough, right? So, I mean, we're sitting here. It's almost 12 hours since this thing went live, and I haven't been able to connect to it. You haven't been able to connect to it. A bunch of people haven't been able to connect to it. Like, I get that there's problems, man, but come on. At some point, you got to get this figured out, and it's just it's just weird, man. You know, it's to the average gamer, I just look at a situation like this and I'm like, why are you releasing this when I can't play it? Mm-hmm. Maybe for the first couple hours there's some hitches and things are going haywire. Like, I get all that, but dude, we're 11 hours into this demo now, and I still can't log into it.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, man, this is like their first big beta with this. They've had an alpha, but this is like the first big beta where they're trying to get people in to try to test things out. You're gonna check out some of the game. I'm sure they're using it to test the servers. Obviously, they weren't prepared. Shocking. This isn't even an EA thing. I mean, it's bad because it's EA, but this is an everything case for the most part. For the most part, there's been a few exceptions along the way. For the most part, when we do these online betas to start things off the first one, typically we're going to have some issues like this. But yeah, this is a little prolonged. This has gone a little on. But the thing that's kind of irritating for a lot of people is there are people playing it. There are people who are online streaming it, having a good time, enjoying what they're playing. And then there's you and I and the PS4. We can't get past the one screen. I got a code for my NVIDIA card for PC. I can get into Fort Tarsis. But when I try to load the expedition mission, which is like the mission, the loading bar at the top stops at about 95%, and it crashes the game. You're like, okay, cool. So I haven't been able to play it anywhere, but there are people playing it. Yes, this is a little bit longer than what we would have liked, but, I'll give him some time. Maybe tomorrow night. We're hoping tomorrow night you, Frankie, and I are hoping we can hop in and stream it. But this has been kind of a cluster these first 12 hours. But I'm going to give him a little bit of a break. But next time I wouldn't call it the VIP demo. I don't feel VIP with this right now. So only the VIP. Yeah, the big streamers, they are the VIPs. We're not quite the VIPs yet. Shout out to the chat. VOX Xanity is in there. Jacob's in there. He's almost done with his solo Luna's journey. So he's been going for the Lunas, going solo. Good for him. So that's awesome. But yeah, no, today has been just kind of a hot mess in terms of the Anthem beta. But hopefully tomorrow or throughout this evening, leading in tomorrow, we'll see some progress being made.
Absolutely. So I echo your sentiments. Shout out to those of you in the chat right now. And if you're watching the video, our goal tomorrow night is to do an Anthem stream. So if you're around and you're looking for something to watch, and definitely tune in for that. We're hoping that we can feature a stream of the game. Granted that it works, we'll be 24, 48 hours removed from the start of the demo. So hopefully the thing will work at that point. But no guarantees.
Fingers crossed.
But yeah, the goal is to get into there and play that. Obviously, Anthem has a very strong crossover with Destiny. And many of the people who play Destiny on a regular basis are looking forward to what Anthem has to offer, at least testing it out and seeing what it's all about, and we fall into that crowd as well. But enough Anthem. We've got plenty of Destiny to talk about this evening.
Let's do it.
So let's get into it, Brent. And like I said, we've missed a couple weeks here. So the theme of this show is going to be all about Tuesday's big update. So there's a big update coming out. They've been kind of dissecting this over the last few weeks, and we're going to touch on all that and get you guys ready for the big update 2.1.4 on Tuesday. Before we get to that, though, Luke Smith, the creative franchise director of Destiny, dropped a very interesting message on the Bungie blog just about a week ago, and it's something that I wanted to discuss with you last week. Brent didn't get a chance to, but I was out of town. But this week, I want us to touch on this because I think there's some very, very telling and interesting things in here that I want to get your take on. So, Luke Smith, last week on the Bungie blog, had this to say. Hey, everyone. I wanted to share 3 things on behalf of the Destiny team today. First, our sincere thanks to the people at Activision who helped to bring Destiny to our players, High Moon Studios for their wonderful collaboration on Forsaken, and Vicarious Visions who helped establish a Destiny community on PC, worked with us on Warmind, and who is currently readying their Destiny Swan Song with content that will appear in the upcoming season of Redacted, also known as Penumbra. So, at the very least, it sounds like Vicarious Visions will be working on the game. Until then, don't know if High Moon has completed their time with the game, but that's certainly what it sounds like here. So this gives us kind of our first hint at the future of Destiny. Next, in the short term, we're continuing to build the content we've promised for the annual pass. We've learned a lot from Black Armory that we will apply to future releases, most notably that we'd like the beginning experiences of content drops to be a better point of convergence for the player base. In Black Armory, we set the power requirement for the first forge too high, and that meant it wasn't a great chance to jump into some new content. We want to find the line between new content that many players can play and aspirational content for players to progress toward. We're exploring improvements to catch-up mechanics for players in upcoming seasons. And last, long-term, Bungie is committed to Destiny. We created the universe and we hold its future entirely in our hands. The vast majority of the team is hard at work envisioning future experiences, enemies, and ways to play the Guardian you've been building since 2014. We're going to keep doing that. We're thinking about what it means to be truly independent, what it means to self-publish, and crucially, what Destiny's future can now look like for our players. It was a busy fall and it's going to be a busy year. When I look ahead and think about Destiny and where it could go, I see a bright future with roots in a memorable past. Not everything has been lost in the dark corners of time. See you soon, Luke. End of message there. So Brent, certainly some things popped to mind when I was reading through this letter to the fans here. But I want to get your take on what Luke is saying here. Any and everything on the table here, man. What stood out to you about this message? What do you think about what Luke's saying? Have at it.
Well, the first portion of it, kind of addresses the things that we talked about the last show. We talked about the breakup with Activision. Now we kind of have an idea of what the end game for this relationship, what it's going to be. It appears it's going to be the Penumbra update, which we know is now being worked on by Vicarious Visions. There's no mention of High Moon Studios. They specifically mentioned they're working on this, which would make sense because that is the my mic is insanely loud, Jacob says. Hang on, Jacob. I apologize.
I don't hear that on my end, so I don't know if that helps you with the equalization there, but it sounds good in terms of what I'm hearing.
Okay, let me.
It's got to be something with the stream output.
It's probably that. I'll just try to talk quieter, Jacob. I don't want to mess anything up right now. But with that, so now we have an idea of exactly when this will come to an end. So, Vicarious Vision, which makes sense because the Penumbra update is the final piece of the annual pass. What after that will be the fall update, and that will be entirely in Bungie's hands, which Luke mentions later in there. So I like that because it kind of gives us an idea of when this is going to come to an end, this relationship with Activision. In terms of the short-term thing, the next post, I like the fact that basically he's saying what you and I were talking about and what a lot of people were talking about. Make these content packs or whatever you want to call them, make them more accessible from the beginning. Don't have such a high wall so not everyone can experience. They want to ease people into it, but then like he says, make aspirational goals, stuff that you can still grind towards. Make sure there's some stuff that's still out of reach, but everyone can still make their way into it. So I definitely like that idea as well. And then, like the long-term thing, the final part of that post is they're committed to Destiny. I think that's what everyone wants to hear because, everyone was thinking, well, they broke up from Activision and they've got this other deal going on with who is it, Tencent or who's the
NetEase?
NetEase. There you go, NetEase. Something going on with them that, is their focus on Destiny. This reassures us, yes, Destiny is a part of the future of Bungie, and they're working on new stuff. So, I mean, that's what I took from that post. There's a lot of stuff in there that if you read between the lines, a lot of reassurance to the fans.
Yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned, Brent, like that first section there gives us a pretty clear hint as to the end of Bungie's relationship with Activision. Obviously, Vicarious Vision and High Moon Studios are Activision-owned studios. So with them completing their work on with Penumbra, we can assume that that's going to be the end of the relationship with Activision. And at that point, the logical follow-up question is, well, what does that mean for the fall? Like, what does the immediate future of Destiny look like once we finish the annual pass? With this game completely in Bungie's hands at this point, do we get the fall update that we've become accustomed to? Like, are we going to get this update that many of us are expecting the fall to include the return to the Dreadnought and a face-to-face meeting with Savathun? We've been building to this for the last 2 years in Destiny 2. This meeting with Savathun. We assume it's going to happen on the Dreadnought, which if we look at the light wave that the Traveler unleashed at the end of Destiny 2, that's the roadmap. The roadmap is to go back to Saturn or back to the Dreadnought next, presumably, like I said, to encounter Savathun. So with that, Bungie's sooner rather than later, they're going to have to talk about like what the future of Destiny looks like, because the end of the annual pass is in sight here. We've only got 6 months of content or so left to go with this, and we've got to start building to the next thing with Destiny. So are we going to get that fall update? I mean, gun to head, Brent, if you were to ask me that right now, I would assume yes, we'll get some type of a fall update. I'm assuming that prior to their split with Activision, that they were probably putting in quite a bit of work towards some type of a fall update already. Like there's already stuff that's in the works and that they're working towards. They have part of the team that's working on whatever's going to come out in the fall. So I don't know. Do you think it's a pretty safe bet that we get some type of an update in the fall? Maybe something not quite as big as Forsaken, but maybe something along the lines of a Rise of Iron. Like is that in the roadmap for us, you think?
First of all, yeah, I did fix the settings on my mic. Jacob, thanks for calling that out. I had to go in there. It was set at 100, so now I put it back to the normal 70. So hopefully it's not as deafening as it was before. But, like I said, things have changed now that Activision isn't on board. If Activision was on board, I would expect a sizable content in the fall. But now that Activision's not going to be a part of those plans and that, it's in Bungie's hands now, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know what to expect. I do expect something. I don't know if I'm going to expect a huge, like, Forsaken type of update. But, yeah, like you said, like a Rise of Iron, something else that's going to – it has to be something impactful. It doesn't have to be – it might not be massive, but it has to be something big with story, because we got to believe that this is going to be the next one that's going to lead us into Destiny 3. This is the last big update, because we'll probably get another annual pass after that. But, yeah, I'm expecting something for the fall. They can't not have a big update for the fall. I mean, and the thing is, dude, here we are. It's January, almost February. They've had something big in place since Activision was around. They had this stuff planned. Like, look, we have this big thing planned. I do think we'll have some really good content in the fall. I do expect a big drop.
Yeah. Let me ask you this too on the backs of that. Not necessarily with whatever they're gonna do in the fall, but do you expect the way they deliver content to us to change, or change considerably for that matter, now that Bungie has gone completely independent? Like, should we expect either larger content drops, more time in between content, more regular content, more the annual pass type of things? What do you think, man? Should we expect some type of a difference now that they've gone fully independent?
I mean, it's not out of the realm of a possibility that we'll see a different approach. And I mean, and we're going to get a good idea of exactly what type of publisher Activision is based on what Bungie does going forward. Whatever Bungie does, if it's different from Activision, we're going to see the difference between the approach of how they lay out their content, how they release it, how much there is. You know, because when you have these publishers, they want results. They want the money coming in. They want that product to be appealing, and you know, they're going to force how they want stuff distributed. Now that you don't have to deal with that, we're going to kind of see what Bungie's idea of how to release content. You know, is it going to be better for us, the consumer? I hope so, because you're an independent developer now. You don't have the protection of the publisher. You have to answer for the decisions that you make going forward. So I don't know what type of approach they'll make. As long as as long as we don't have droughts, that's the biggest concern that I have. As long as there's no droughts and there's constant stuff, I'm happy, man.
Yeah, and they've definitely learned that over the years, over the 4 or 5 years that Destiny's been around. They understand that this is a voracious community when it comes to consuming the content they release. So I think they realize at this point that there needs to be some type of a consistent content feed to us. And that's really, when it comes down to it, that's the crux of the annual pass. So far, it's something where they're releasing new content every single week to try to keep this voracious community fed. So when all said and done, Brent, when do you think we hear about the post Activision Destiny future? Do you think this is in a post Penumbra world? Do you think this is sometime in the next few months, in the summer, in the spring? Or do you think this is more towards the fall that we start to learn about the future of this, probably after they release their last big part of the annual pass?
I'm gonna say somewhere after Penumbra, or maybe around E3. Some kind of an event. But I mean, not they're not going to be a part of Activision Blizzard or whatever. It's going to have to be a Bungie event. They're going to have to do something. So, but no, I mean, we're going to have to hear something before fall, obviously. So I would say, E3, sometime after Penumbra. I wouldn't expect anything before Penumbra. I would expect them to just be focused on that, getting that content ready, keeping us busy with that. Because, I mean, that Penumbra update is going to be very, very interesting because, like you said, they're not telling us anything. And we're going to be out there exploring, and who knows what we're going to find. Who knows what we're going to encounter. So that's going to keep us busy. But, yeah, I think E3 or sometime after Penumbra, we're going to have to hear about that fall update. I mean, that's inevitable.
They might just have to tell us anyways, because they won't be able to talk about Penumbra, right? It's all stuff we have to figure out. So they're like, well, I guess.
Sorry, guys, we can't talk about this content drop, but we're going to talk about the big fall update.
We'll just have to, out of necessity, talk about the futures. We have nothing else to discuss.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm super curious though, man. Super curious to see the direction that Bungie takes, how different it is from their time with Activision. If they bring in, another publisher to help them with this, I'm curious to see how all this stuff works in the coming months here, though. In terms of what Luke mentioned here with what they've learned from Black Armory, I think all that makes sense. It's everything that we expected, Brent. We've talked about this as much on the show, but look, they've learned how from the beginning of Black Armory what the community feedback was on that, and the reality was that the content was a little bit tough to get into at first. So it sounds like they've learned from that. I am curious though to see, since the next update is the Season of the Drifter, presumably focused on Gambit and Gambit activities. What does that update look like for players? Like, are we going to see high level Gambit content? Are we going to see some type of mission based structure around this? Like, what does that update look like? Very, very curious to see what that is, but also reassuring to hear that they've learned that the biggest piece of feedback from the Black Armory, definitely that it was tough to get into at first. Far and away though, Brent, the most interesting part of Luke Smith's letter is when he finishes this thing here and he talks about the future of the game. So, like you mentioned, long-term, Bungie is committed to Destiny. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we talked about the split between Bungie and Activision. If Bungie had no plans for Destiny, if this was not in their long-term goals, they would have never split with Activision and then presumably paid some type of fee or parted with some sum of money to retain the rights to Destiny and hold its future in their hands. If Destiny was not in their future and they wanted to move on from this and do something else or just leave that to Activision, they would have left the game there. They would not have split from them and tried to take their game with them. So that's a very clear indication that they have plans for this game, that they have a vision for this game, that they're connected to this game, and they're proud of this game that they've built, and they want to keep it going. So that box is checked off there. But Brent, several times in here, Luke Smith makes mention to the past. The vast majority of the team is hard at work envisioning future experiences, enemies, and ways to play the Guardian you've been building since 2014. The Guardian since 2014. So this is not, hey, we're building a brand new Destiny, we're starting from scratch. We're clearly referencing the game that we've been playing since the beginning, the Guardian we've been building since the beginning, the experiences we've been playing since the beginning. And they mentioned there too, future experiences and enemies. So is this the fabled darkness? Like, are we going to come face to face with them in Destiny 3? We've been fighting, really in Destiny 2, there's not really any new alien races. Well, I guess the Scorn in Forsaken, you could count them as a new one. But, you know, building new enemies, it's comforting to hear that. He talks about, you know, the obviously being independent and what that means. But then he says at the end here, when I look ahead and think about Destiny and where it could go, I see a bright future with roots in a memorable past. Not everything has been lost in the dark corners of time. So that statement right there, what does that mean? So that's what I want to get to the heart of.
That's a very, very cryptic message. It could be something, it could be nothing. That's the beauty of it. It could literally be nothing, but it could be something. And what he means by the past, I don't know what he's referencing or what he's hinting at. I mean, what do you have any takes on that? Because I thought about that a couple times today. I was just like, man, what is he talking about? But that's cryptic. That's cryptic, man.
I have a few thoughts on it, and I've read some thoughts on it and watched some videos on what some other people have thought about it as well. So there's a lot of theories out there, and there's some interesting ones out there. I was watching one video where I believe it was Rick Kakis was mentioning that maybe this is in reference to some of the lost material that they've or the material that's been on the cutting room floor over the last 4 years. So, you know, there's been a lot of Destiny concept art over the years, referencing areas like Europa, for instance, that we've never been to. And we know the whole sordid history of Destiny and how it was rebooted, and the story that we played in that game was not the original story for the game. So there's a lot of that stuff that we've never seen as well, like everything that went into that version of Destiny. We haven't played that up to this point. So it could be something like that, like just referencing this past material that either they didn't get a chance to use, maybe because Activision pointed them in another direction, or they just didn't have a chance to get that into the game that they were building at the time. They just didn't have the time because they were under the constraints of their contract with Activision. It could be that we're going to get the content from Destiny back into Destiny 2. So there's a bunch of planets, there's a bunch of raids, there's a bunch of strikes, there's a bunch of content that's in Destiny 1 that's only accessible in Destiny 1 right now. I guess they have brought some weapons over. There's even some locations that are similar to what we've played in Destiny 1. But for the most part, Brent, the majority of Destiny 1 is still locked in Destiny 1. Right. And Luke mentions in here about the Guardian you've been building since 2014. That goes all the way back to Destiny 1. So there's a few times where he references the past in here, and I wonder if it means that they want all of the Destiny that they've created under one roof. They want to get everything into the game. They want everything there for you, so that you don't have to go back and forth between Destiny 1 and 2. It could mean that, and it also could just mean something like that message there. Not everything has been lost in the dark corners of time. Is a reference to the Vault of Glass, I believe. So it could also just mean, hey, we're bringing the Vault of Glass back. Could be something as simple as that.
Oh man!
But there's a lot of a lot of different ways it could go, but I just thought it was a very interesting letter, Brent, and just the fact that it's out there, and he decided that this was what he wanted to say. He said this for a reason. Like, he wants the community thinking about this stuff, and there's a meaning behind the words that he's using. It's our job to just parse through it now. So I don't know, of all that, man, does anything in that stick out to you, or do you have any other thoughts on what Luke could be referring to here?
I don't. I mean, like I said, man, I pondered this and I tried to figure out. And you mentioned the past and stuff, and that brings some things to light. But and could he be referencing bringing back some of the content from Destiny 1? And if that's the case, I mean, does that play into your thought that we talked about a couple of weeks ago? With Destiny 3 just being an update to Destiny 2? Like, everything is just one big platform, and by bringing Destiny 3 into Destiny 2 as opposed to a whole new release, they could easily go Destiny 1, bring all that into Destiny 2, and then you have everything from start to finish, this massive platform that is indeed a platform and not individual, because it's still Destiny 1, Destiny 2. Your progression, not even your progression carries over. It's just your character, your stats,
your garbage character that you created in Destiny 1.
your character and your time stats that you saw at the beginning of Destiny 2. That's basically the only connection you have between the two. Whereas they could be thinking, look, you had this character from 2014. How can we bring it all together so everything is related and make it a true platform like you see with Rainbow Six Siege, where they just constantly just update. Who knows if we'll ever see another Rainbow Six Siege game? Who knows? And they could do that with Destiny. They could just be like, hey, look, instead of Destiny 3, there'll be a Destiny 3, but it's just going to be a massive update that you'll pay for or whatever, but it's still going to be a part of the same, the same client. You won't have to worry about separating stuff, so you don't have to go back to Destiny 1 to work on do another Vault of Glass run. You can just do it all as one, which I think would be amazing. That'd be a huge undertaking, because you'd have to look at all these raids and these strikes and figure in the new ultimates and the new special abilities and new supers and all that jazz. You have to figure out, can this all work? And so it'd be a huge undertaking, but man, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we're just speculating right now. We don't have any. We're not. This is just us guessing based on what Luke is saying. But that kind of stuff gets me. Man, it gets me going.
We are the last people with inside information on this game, so
we don't get privy to that stuff.
Yeah, so everything we say is just our thoughts and opinions. But yeah, super interesting, man. And I just think, just to hammer that point home, like, he's choosing the words he's choosing for a reason. He knows what he's saying. He knows the thoughts and the things that he's putting out into the universe. So it's just a matter of, which one of these thoughts and ideas we have is the way that Bungie's thinking right now. So I just thought it was a super interesting letter, and there's some things to parse from it. And I don't know when we'll figure out exactly what Luke was talking about, but I do think it's going to be sooner rather than later. We'll be talking about the future of Destiny, and then we'll, of course, discuss it on this very show once that becomes a reality. But out of the future and into the present, Brent, let's talk about what's coming in this gigantic update on Tuesday. So this is shaping up, like I said, to be a large update. Not content-wise, of course, but there's a lot of sandbox changes that are coming into the game that are going to significantly change the way that we play this game in all of its aspects, from PvE to PvP. So the first thing we want to touch on with 2.1.4 is the changes that are coming to supers, and there's a lot of them. There's some significant changes, and just so everybody's in the loop here, these are the development goals that Bungie put forth when they were looking at what they wanted to do with supers in this update. First, as frequently as possible, continue to shift the combat meta with sandbox updates to keep Destiny fresh. Second, investigate and improve outliers, underperformers in terms of popularity or effectiveness, to keep all of your given sandbox options feeling like relevant and effective choices. And third, address major quality of life sandbox issues reported by the community to maintain a smooth and consistent gameplay experience in Destiny. So obviously, that's all great stuff, and that's what we want to see from the sandbox designers in this game. To accomplish this, they did the following. They compiled community feedback, looked at the data, both usage rates and effectiveness, and place-tested changes and continued adjusting those changes. So, with that said, let's talk what's going on with these supers, Brent. So first and foremost, these are the supers receiving damage increases. Golden Gun, both the 3-shot and 6-shooter variety. Shadow Shot, the Mobius Quiver, getting a damage increase. Arc Staff, Burning Maul, Hammer of Soul, Code of the Siegebreaker, Fist of Havoc, Sentinel Shield, Nova Bomb, both Cataclysm and Vortex varieties, and Daybreak, all getting damage increases. So essentially, that's almost all of the old supers are getting some type of a damage increase with update 2.1.4. On the small damage decrease side of things, Blade Barrage and Nova Warp are the only two in that category. And if you've played the Crucible at all over the last, 3 months, you know why. Those two are on that list.
I'm with Jacob in the chat. He said, "Not my beautiful Blade Barrage." Yeah, my man, they're nerfing us a little bit. They're nerfing us. VOX Insanity says, "I can't believe how people think Bungie is just going to sit back and let Anthem come in and take over. Can't wait for that new update on Tuesday." Hell yeah, we got a lot to talk about with that update. Go continue, Mr. Boyce.
Oh yeah, and Josh notes with this. Josh Hamrick, who's one of the designers on Destiny, this is the beginning of this process. So they're getting in here, looking at the data, looking at everything that needs to be changed, and this is going to be an ongoing kind of thing with them. So let's specifically, Brent, get into what's going on with these classes. So your beloved Hunter, let's start there with the Gunslinger, another class that you frequent around these parts. So with Golden Gun, this is a big one. 6-shooter kills return a bullet, and the practice makes perfect super regen has been increased. On the Blade Barrage side of things, the damage is now heavily weighted on the delayed explosion instead of the knife impact. Now deals self-damage if the knives explode too close, and fix the bug where the knives would track allies. So the notes on this read as follows. This Golden Gun change brings increased uptime for with your super. For Way of the Outlaw, this means a skill-based mechanic to extend it. For Way of the Sharpshooter, it's the ability to earn your super more quickly. So Brent, want to get your thoughts on this? Clearly, Golden Gun is going to be a much more powerful super, a much better option, especially when it comes to the Crucible with this change in PvE activities as well. And with Blade Barrage, it sounds like it's still going to be a dominant super. It will still cause teams to curse the screen in front of them. But what this potentially does is if it weights the damage that the knives do on the delayed explosion, it gives enemies the ability to potentially, at the very least, trade kills with a Hunter throwing their Blade Barrage. So right now, once the Hunter jumps up and he throws that Blade Barrage, you're instantly dead. You have nothing you can do. But now, with that delayed explosion being where the weight of the damage comes from, maybe you can get off your super, or you can get off a shotgun blast, or a sniper shot, or something to do some type of damage to the Blade Barrage, to the Hunter. Maybe do some damage on him, maybe kill him outright if it's a super attack. But it increases the chance. It sounds like to me that you could trade, attacks with the Hunter. But Brent, you're a resident Hunter. I want to get your thoughts on what's going on with Gunslinger here.
I'm with Jacob. I'm bummed that it's being nerfed a little bit, but it's still going to be a very effective super. It's going to cause all sorts of chaos. It's going to piss Boyce off in Crucible, and as long as he continues to bitch about it, I'm happy. I just like to hear that. But dude, the Golden Gun, and I don't know if you guys saw this tweet that Bungie put out today of the Golden Gun in action with this update. Watch this, dude. Boom, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 shots with that Golden Gun, dude. 12 shots. That is sexy as hell. I mean, that's going to be really, really nice. If you're in Crucible and, you get a couple kills right away, run around, try to find somebody else, boom, 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 a couple more kills, and you're getting bullets back. And that's gross. And I mean, this is going to be super useful in PvE. You're going to be able to wipe out almost an entire crowd. I mean, look at this. They're in the Forge, the Volunder Forge, and he's just eviscerating Cabal everywhere. And I mean, it's just that's really, really sexy. I thought that was hot.
Yeah, that is pretty hot, I will admit. So that is what's going on with Gunslinger. Now on the Night Stalker side of things, so Mobius Quiver, the entire damage bonus is applied on the first hit instead of stacking and multiplying. increased tether radius and lifetime, and made it easier to fire successive tethers. Interestingly enough, Brent, Spectral Blades, damage resistance in stealth has been decreased. Thank goodness.
Oh,
I mean,
stop.
Dude, when this guy's running at me and I'm like just unloading full clips into him and it's doing nothing. He's just,
I've seen your
running
shooting.
at me.
I've seen your shooting, so we'll just that's up for debate, but continue.
Dude, I'm rocking this guy pretty good, and he's just running at me. Just trust me on this.
Oh yeah, I'll check the tape.
Duration of super while invisible has been slightly decreased, so a slight tweak to Spectral Blades. Obviously, that one just got brought up in recent time in terms of its effectiveness, and Spectral Blades is everywhere in the Crucible right now. Everywhere, everywhere I turn, there are hunters in Spectral Blades. So, but Brent, let me get your thoughts on what's going on with Night Stalker here.
I'm not too concerned about it. I do like the changes to Mobius Quiver. Anytime they make the tethers more effective, I'm all for it. Mm-hmm. Spectral Blades, I like using Spectral Blades, and it sounds, I don't want the stealth decreased, or more, you can take more damage in there, or the invisibility time is decreased. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, when you're in that form and you're in Crucible, you're always within an earshot of somebody else. I mean, you can usually get up on the enemy pretty quick. So this will be something that we'll just try it out and then form an opinion on it. But I don't like nerfing supers. I don't like nerfing things, but we'll see if it balances things out. Maybe you'll stop complaining.
Well, Spectral Blades just got buffed a few updates back, and it's been buffed significantly. I mean, you talk about gross. Spectral Blades is gross. It's a gross super, especially in the Crucible. My gosh. But Josh also mentions this is just the first part of what they're doing with Shadow Shot and Mobius Quiver. So there's more to come when it comes to the Night Stalker there. On the Arc Strider side of things, super damage is now more heavily weighted towards the heavy palm strike attack. No attack damage was reduced, but much of the added damage for this super went into the heavy attack, and the lethal current bonus damage has been increased. Brent, you're a huge Arc Strider fan. What do you think about this?
Don't know, don't care.
Let's move on to the Titan.
Yes.
So the Sunbreaker, Sunspots are now double the damage of the burn on enemies. The Sun Warrior, buff length increased from 3 seconds to 5 seconds. Now increases all outgoing damage. Does that include weapons as well? I mean, I don't. Obviously, we're not very familiar with Titans. We need Wolf on the program here,
right?
To talk Titans, but that sounds potentially dangerous. And then Burning Maw, slam radius increased. Slam Fire Tornado has improved homing. On the Sentinel side of things, super damage is more heavily weighted on the heavy shield charge attack. Just like Arc Strider, no attack damage was reduced, but much of the added damage for the super went into the heavy attack. On the Striker side of things, terminal velocity, there are now 3 tiers of hang time. The amount of hang time has been reworked for each tier. Each tier of hang time now causes 4 damaging shocks instead of 3. The damage for the hang time bonus has been increased significantly. And Trample, the light shoulder attack super cost, has been reduced by 85%.
Yes.
That seems significant.
Yes.
And Trample can now trigger every half second, up from every 1 second. So, Titans are incredibly irritating in all facets of the game, especially in Crucible. It sounds like that's going to be increased even more now. So great. Can't wait. Warlocks. Let's get to the main attraction here. So Dawn Blade, super duration has been increased. Yes, please. Very, very much looking forward to that. Voidwalker, some interesting changes here. So with the Cataclysm super, increased detonation radius. This is all, of course, with the Nova Bomb. Cluster damage has been increased. Improved cluster bomb homing to make it more consistent against single targets. And cluster bombs no longer detonate one another. So these are some interesting changes here, Brent. So if you use the Cataclysm version of Nova Bomb right now and you throw that bomb at somebody, once it explodes and the tracking bombs shoot off from that, they look for other targets around the area. They don't go for the target that's right in front of them. So if you were to use this on a single enemy, those tracking balls just go everywhere. And it's like, what are you doing? There's an enemy right there. I just threw a bomb at him. So now it sounds like on a single enemy or against a single target, we'll throw a bomb, and then if there's nobody else around, those homing bombs will go after that one target. So that is a welcome change. On the Vortex side of things, linger damage has been increased significantly. Now on Nova Warp, some very big changes here. Slower movement while charging. Charging costs more energy and overall duration is reduced. Damage resistance reduced very slightly. And PvP damage reduction. Charge detonation will no longer be able to one-shot another player in their super, provided it has damage resistance. So, I think these are all acceptable changes. You know, I don't think it's gonna. It doesn't sound like anything that's gonna completely destroy the super. It's not gonna be effective anymore. It's still gonna be a very effective super in the Crucible, but it's just gonna cost a little bit more to teleport around. You're gonna have to do a little bit more to kill the Guardians in their supers, but this stuff all sounds acceptable to me. In fact, Josh sums it up here. The Nova Warp changes above are all small, but we think together they will help bring it down into a good place, a place similar to the supers that we're raising up. When it comes to Stormcaller and Storm Trance, increase the number of targets for Chain Lightning by 1, which is very much welcome. So what do you think? What do you think, Brent? You excited about the Warlock changes, man?
I mean, no. I don't really care. I mean, I'm not bothered by Warlocks in Crucible. I see him and I kill him. You know, and my favorite is the Stormcaller. That's still my favorite one. To see him, you know, going around and Palpatine everybody, and then I just light him up and kill him instantly. It's just rewarding. I'm not like Warlocks aren't just they're humorous in Crucible. That's all.
That's because typically we're on the same team, so you don't get the full brunt of like a Master Warlock coming at you. So,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
You know, if we were on opposing fire teams, then I think you'd really feel it.
I would just blade you barrage right out of the game, dude. You just rage quit. But go ahead.
So that is what's going on with the super side of things. So overall, Brent, overall thoughts on what they're doing with the supers. Is this a good change, bad change? Are they doing some things they shouldn't be doing? What do you think?
No, I think these are good changes. And I mean, the Blade Barrage, you know, I'm bummed about that. But again, we won't know until we actually use it just to see how less effective it is. It might not even be noticeable at all. You might still be just out there wreaking havoc. But no, anytime they can make the supers feel like a super, I'm cool with them doing that. Making little tweaks and stuff, because there are times where I'll pop a super and it's like, man, how did I get wiped out right there? Or why didn't I do more damage? Why wasn't it more effective? And I think anytime you have people asking those questions, they have to look at these supers and adjustment, because that's what they are. They're supers, dude. They are super abilities, and they should feel super, and they should be highly effective, and that's what they're doing. They're tweaking these, and we'll find out next week just how effective they are, or maybe some are overly effective, and we'll be right back to where we're just tweaking stuff. But supers need to be super. It's plain and simple.
Yeah, because the reality is, man, since Forsaken, I mean, honestly, how much have you used the old supers or the old super pathways? Don't use them at all, right?
Nope.
And that's the case for most people. So Bungie's looking at this. They're looking at the data, and they're like, all right. We want you guys to feel comfortable using all of the tools in your arsenal. All of the tools in your toolbox should be at your disposal. Excuse me. Dying here. But
don't do that.
So instead of just focusing on 3 supers, giving us the ability to use all 9 of our supers again would be ideal.
Yeah, so. And that's the thing. Like, you know, we mentioned, you know, we've used all the other ones. I think I've used Shadow Shot on a few instances where we were needing them in a PvE situation, you know, to get the tethers out there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've dabbled with them, but I mean, yeah, like Golden Gun and stuff like that. I haven't even thought about using it. So I'm glad that they're making some of these changes to make them relevant again. And believe me, I will be using Golden Gun more in PvE settings, especially with the ability to get bullets back in the gun. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, definitely sounds pretty awesome. So. Looking forward to seeing how all of this plays out. All right, moving on from supers, let's talk weapons now. So the other part of this update is everything that's going on with the weapon types, and there's some significant things going on here as well. So these are the goals, Brent, in terms of update 2.1.4 when it comes to weapons. Buff underutilized weapon archetypes. Adjust hot button weapons in PvP, including Telesto and Wave Splitter. Oh my. And avoid PvP adjustments that will negatively affect PvE efficacy. So that's an interesting one, and it's an interesting balancing act that Bungie has to deal with when they adjust these guns. They want to make sure that the things they do to these weapons, specifically for PvP, don't affect the weapon's ability in PvE. So like the Telesto, for instance, is incredibly powerful in PvP, but it's also incredibly powerful in PvE. It's a super useful weapon. I use it all the time in PvE. And I would hate to see them do something to that gun in the Crucible and have that negatively affect the gun when it comes to the PvE activity. So
Right.
I think that is a great goal to have. So let's talk about what's going on with these weapon archetypes. Auto rifles. Damage increased for rapid fire, adaptive, and high impact families. We find that auto rifles are a little unforgiving for the ranges they ask you to occupy in a world filled with special weapons, and as a result, we're increasing the damage to offset the higher risk. Now, Brent, if I'm correct in this, I believe this includes all of the auto rifle archetypes outside of the 450 round per minute auto rifles, which includes Horror Story, Origin Story. Back in the day, we had Uriel's Gift, Orman's Anvil. Those all fell into that category. But the other archetypes are all sound like they're getting a damage buff. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, Brent, you use auto rifles a lot. Is this a necessary change for the game?
Yeah, I mean, I use Breakneck a lot. I use the Kaibu in a lot of instances, and just starting to get the hang of the Ringing Nail. And I feel like a lot of those ones, those are all precision frame assault rifles, and
those ones not included in this update.
Yeah, and the thing is, that right there says a lot. I mean, this is just me individually. Obviously, it's different on a person-to-person basis, but all I use are precision frames. And that's because the other ones weren't as useful. They weren't as impactful. But now we're going to see these changes. Now I'm going to want to go back and visit some of these assault rifles outside of the precision frame family to see how effective they are, especially those rapid-fire ones. If you got a good rapid-fire one that has good stability, those can be pretty lethal. And if they're getting a damage increase, watch out for that.
Also interested to see from an exotic perspective what goes on with something like the Cerberus +1. So that's a member of the high-impact family. So what does that gun look like after this update? Or the Suros, for instance.
Right.
The Suros has two, methods of fire on the gun. One of them is a high impact variety, and one of them would fall into the adaptive or the rapid fire variety. So are both aspects of Suros getting buffed as well? Mm-hmm. So those are some interesting things to look at from the exotic perspective as well. Let's move on to scout rifles. Damage increased for lightweight and rapid fire families, as well as an increase to all scout rifles in PvE. Scout rifles are always going to be on the lower end of damage due to the safety that their range affords you, but the difference currently between them and other primary weapons is too drastic. As a result, we're reducing the size of the gap. So recently, Brent, they buffed the other class of scout rifles, the 150 round per minute scout rifles. So now it looks like they're doing the other families as well, bringing them up to snuff. So what do you think, man? Welcome change to not only PvE but to these guns in PvP as well?
I think so, man. I've gravitated. I'm a big fan of scout rifles, but I've gravitated kind of away from those in favor of like pulse rifles and what have you in PvP. So no, making these more appealing will have me looking over my lineup or my loadout going into PvP going forward. I want to test them out and see just how effective they are. But yeah, this is going to bring scout rifles back up because I feel like pulse rifles are pretty much like the meta right now in PvP. And so let's see what scout rifles can do.
I almost feel like they're the meta in PvE as well. I rarely use scout. I used scout rifles all the time in Destiny 1, and I used it. I used Nameless Midnight all the time in year 1 of Destiny 2. But since Forsaken, I've rarely picked up scout rifles. I feel like
I'm looking at I'm looking at all my weapons right now in my current loadout. I don't have one scout rifle.
Yeah, so they just don't get the use right now from myself, from yourself, and I think that's for a lot of players. And yeah, it's just the effective range of pulse rifles is really good right now. So it's like, rarely I feel like I'm outside of a range where a pulse rifle can't be effective. Occasionally you'll get into those further distances, and obviously in PvE you carry around sniper rifles and things like that all the time. But in the Crucible, yeah, the pulse rifles occupy those mid ranges to even a little bit of those longer mid ranges very well, and there's just not a lot of room for scout rifles in a lot of these maps right now. So interested to see how all that works out. Sniper rifles increase the damage on the rapid fire archetype to be able to kill in 2 body shots. Although snipers are still finding success, we believe that allowing you to clean up a kill easier with a sniper rifle will allow the sniper to have that success at more ranges and in more situations. So in Bungie's eyes, Brent, they envision you popping somebody with with some type of an auto rifle or a scout rifle, maybe a sidearm, something, and then switching over to a sniper rifle and cleaning up that kill. What do you think about what we're hearing here about the 2-kill body shots in these rapid fire snipers?
Sounds nasty. Don't run out in the open anymore. Take cover. Those long sight lines are going to be a little bit more dangerous now with the rapid fires being two body shots. That's pretty nasty, dude. That's going to change things up in the Crucible, especially in a lot of those couple of those maps that had those open areas with those rapid fire. That's going to be nasty.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into the exotic weapons now, Brent, with the Legend of Acrius. Increased the damage and bumped out the range slightly. As time moves on, things tend to trend upward in terms of power. In a post-Forsaken world, Acrius simply doesn't have the output to match other heavy weapon exotics. I think this makes a lot of sense. I rarely ever see Acrius used in any capacity, whether in PvE or PvP. So clearly this is a weapon that needs some love. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an exotic weapon, and I've got a couple shotguns that I really like, and Legend Acrius isn't even in the conversation. Yeah. And that speaks volumes. I mean, again, this is just based on my personal preference. I love the Aikilo shotgun. That is the only one I'll ever roll with most times. And then sometimes you bring the tractor cannon out for certain situations. But there's the Badlander's a great shotgun with the right roll. The Legend of Acrius needs some major love.
Yeah, and this was a very powerful weapon when Destiny 2 first came out.
Oh hell yeah, dude!
Used to see this thing a lot. In PvE or PvP. This is it's a difficult weapon to obtain. There's a lot that goes into getting this weapon, so I think it makes sense that they go in there and bring this thing up to snuff. Now, one that definitely is going to be a controversial weapon is the Telesto. So PvP damage brought down to match a standard fusion rifle charge rate. Optics, or the zoom of the gun, was also increased to match fusion rifles with long-range scopes. Telesto has become fairly notorious in the Crucible for its effectiveness, even in some cases getting accidental multi-kills due to how damaging the explosions were. To combat these, we've reduced its PvP damage to match its charge rate. This brought up an issue where doing so was significantly hurting the usability of the weapon, so the optics were buffed in return. In general, you should still find it an effective weapon, it just won't be quite as generous as it was before. So, Brent, when you read this or when you hear this, or what's going on with Telesto, is this enough? Do you think they're going in the right direction with what they're doing with this gun?
Anything's enough at this point. This. If you're playing competitive, you have Telesto. It's really that simple. And it needed some kind of reduction. And dude, who knows? I mean, it still might need some. It's just going to depend on how effective it is. And if it's still as nasty as it is right now, it's going to need another pass. But yeah, I mean, if you're in competitive right now, Telesto, you have to have that in your loadout if you want to have any chance to win.
One of the main sticking points with Telesto has been its effective range. So the thing with Telesto, and you can watch a number of the tests that some people have done out here on YouTube, but the effective range of Telesto, it doesn't. There's no damage drop off with this gun. So the further away you get, you're supposed to get less damaging to your enemies. But the further away you get with Telesto, there doesn't appear to be any damage drop-off, at least not for a really long time. So, obviously, the further away you get with fusion rifles, it becomes difficult to hit your enemies with all of the bolts that come out of the gun. So, obviously, that's an issue. But the reality was you could just be dominant with Telesto from ranges that you probably shouldn't be dominant with Telesto. Right. So the question is this update going to change that? Be very interested to get in there and see. But this is one of the ones I'm most interested to check out on Tuesday, Brent, is specifically what Telesto is going to look like in PvP. Let's move on to trace rifles now. Increase the minimum amount of ammo you could receive from special ammo boxes. Trace rifles had a pretty rough time keeping ammo reserves in the Crucible. This is very true, as it doesn't have access to scavenger perks. You should have more success using it more often in the Crucible now, and the changes also affect PvE bricks. They have also reduced the strength of Wave Splitter in PvP. Oh my, not Wave Splitter, Brent. After the ammo changes noted above, Wave Splitter had its one weakness removed, so we've opted to bring it in line with other trace rifles before this patch hits the public. So, Brent, once again, if you've played the Crucible at all over the last 4 months, you've been killed by Wave Splitter. Yes. And you've probably been killed by Wave Splitter multiple times. Is this a gun that they needed to look at? Do you think they're on the right path with what they're doing here with this thing?
Look, the community is very good at letting Bungie know which guns need a look and which guns need a pass. I mean, they really do. If you look at just what everyone's using, there's a reason people use Telesto. There's a reason people use Wave Splitter. It's an overly dominant weapon. And yes, I understand some of these weapons, they're exotics and they should be exotic, and I get that, but I shouldn't feel like I'm at a disadvantage if I'm using a different exotic simply because I don't have that one. I mean, exotics yes, they should be impactful. Yes, they should be highly effective, but they should be in line with other ones. So if I'm using something else other than a Telesto or a Wave Splitter, I'm still doing pretty good. I can still be just as lethal with the right skills, obviously. I'm not saying you should just pick up an exotic and be a killing machine. But, clearly, with the way that the community is playing PvP, these are two weapons, the Telesto and the Wave Splitter, that definitely needed a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, and they mentioned it in, like, their goals in some of the stuff they talked about. This is they understand that they need to look at some of these weapons, and it's really just about making more of your tools available to you, or more of your tools a realistic option at the end of the day when it comes to the Crucible. So that way you don't go into the Crucible and every single person has to run around with Telesto, because that's the way it is. Giving us some more options, I think, is a welcome change. So to sum up what's going on with the weapons here, weapon tuning is an ongoing process. We'll be sure to talk about it again in the future. Some topics we're looking at for future potential adjustments include trace rifle damage in PvE, submachine gun damage adjustments, shotgun adjustments, and taking a holistic look at the heavy slot options and how much of an impact it has on loadout choices for PvE content. What do you think about that, Brent? So trace rifle damage in PvE, submachine gun damage adjustments, shotgun adjustments, which clearly there's a lot of shotguns in the Crucible, and heavy slot options in PvE content. What do you think about all that stuff they're planning to look at?
I don't know. What does that mean? Heavy slot options for PvE.
I don't know.
I'm not sure what to make of that. VOX Insanity says, I hope they don't nerf the 1,000 voices. He goes, you got Wave Splitter? Okay, I got 1,000 voices. Problem solved. So, I haven't heard. Has there been a lot of complaints about 1,000 voices, boys?
I think the reality is a lot of people don't have 1,000 voices because it's a drop from the raid. I think it's a random drop at the end of the raid, so it's not the easiest gun to achieve. And I just don't think enough people have it, but it is unquestionably a dominant piece of weaponry once you get your hands on that thing. Just watching videos and watching people just stream the Crucible with 1,000 voices, it's gross. It's really gross. Yeah, and I think that's really what it comes down to with that one, Brad. I just don't think enough people have that gun for it to be that big of an issue right now.
Well, there you go, Insanity. As long as people don't go in there and just start beating the raid over and over and over again, I don't think you have to worry about it. You'll still be a part of an elite group, but not enough to where everybody has one. You're safe, dude. Don't worry about it.
All right, quickly, Brent, I want to touch on some resolved issues that we can expect to be fixed in the patch that's upcoming here. So, some good stuff in here. So, Lost Radiant Matrix. Players can become blocked from accessing Black Armory activities if the Radiant Matrix is pushed out of their Postmaster inventory. That will be fixed. Missing weapon frames, something you've run into quite a bit.
Yes.
Weapon frames may disappear from 801's inventory in a given week for some players. Editors note, this issue will no longer be present due to the system changes for ballistics logs described above, which we'll get into momentarily here. Mysterious box keys. Forge keys are sometimes not applied when used for the mysterious box, but are removed from inventory, blocking progress. Spent keys will be applied retroactively. Clearly, a good change that needed to be done. Full pursuits at 801. Players are able to purchase weapons frames from 801 when their pursuits inventory is full, receiving nothing while still costing materials. That will be fixed. The Nessus roaming captains. Remember this one? Yep. High-value targets on Nessus do not count for other fire team members when someone defeats them for the Civics' delivery note pursuit. That will be fixed. Redrix's broadsword is sometimes not granted when completing its quest, requiring players to restart the Destiny 2 application for it to drop. So it is there, and thankfully that's a long quest.
I was going to say, can you imagine being the type of dude or person or girl that goes there and tries to get in a pop and it doesn't show up and you're like, what?
I cannot imagine that.
I just delete the game and go to bed. Like, I'm done.
The Like a Diamond Triumph is not unlocking for fire teams who complete the Scourge of the Past raid in a single session with no deaths. That will be fixed. The Always On Time Exotic Sparrow from the Scourge of the Past raid cannot be reclaimed from collections. Oh my. Modulus reports earned when a player's pursuit inventory is full are not sent to the postmaster. Thankfully, that will be fixed. The Scourge of the Past raid scout rifle, No Feelings, does not correctly track kills when masterwork to tier 6 or higher. That'll be fixed. The Veterans of the Hunt emblem uses art from the Universal Hero emblem, causing the Universal Hero emblem to not display properly. That will be fixed as well.
Lord Tipsy, welcome, my friend. What's happening, dude?
Tipsy, what's up, dude?
Badass Lord Tipsy in the house. It's a party now.
It is a party. So that's some of the stuff that's coming with update 2.1.4. We've got some times on this as well. So 8 a.m. Pacific time, Destiny 2 maintenance is scheduled to begin next Tuesday. At 8:45, downtime in Destiny 2 will take place. All players will be removed from the game. Players will not be able to log into the game after this time. At 9 a.m. Pacific time, update 2.1.4 will begin rolling out across all platforms and regions. Downtime in Destiny 2 is expected to end, but maintenance will be ongoing. At 10 a.m. Pacific time, maintenance is expected to conclude. And at 11 a.m. Pacific time, the Destiny Companion app will be re-enabled. So sounds like 10 a.m. Pacific time, Brent will be able to hop in there and experience update 2.1.4. So
Sweet. Be
be on the lookout for that. Now, some other things we want to note here in terms of the current season of Destiny. So starting with Season of the Drifter, we're making a slight change to the way bounties grant powerful rewards to ensure an even playing field each time we kick off a new season. Bounties acquired during previous seasons will have a maximum possible power reward. This change is intended to prevent players from feeling the need to hoard bounties and raid keys that grant powerful rewards until the power cap is raised in an attempt to get a leg up in the push toward the new power cap. So essentially what this boils down to, Brent, is your bounties will have a power cap attached to them depending on what season you earn the bounties in.
Right.
So the example they give is the wanted Silent Fang bounty, which you get from Spider. If you were to go out, tackle that one, but you don't claim the reward in the hopes of you turning that one in next season and getting the new power reward, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So if you claim this reward after Season of the Drifter has begun, the reward will have a maximum power of 650 still. If instead you require this bounty after Season of the Drifter has already begun, the reward will have a maximum power of 700. The cap is applied to bounties on acquisition. So that's what we need to keep in mind there. Any bounties you acquire prior to the start of the new season will only decrypt at that maximum for Black Armory, which is 650.
Right.
Any bounties you acquire after that, once Season of the Drifter starts, you'll be at the new power level of 700. So you'll have that available to you. So just keep that in mind, because they do note if you hold on to a bounty and you carry it into the new season, and then you turn in that bounty and it only decrypts at 650, you're then locked out of that bounty for the week because you just turned in one of the weekly bounties during the new week. Yep. So just keep all that stuff in mind, and then everything will be good. There's a couple other previews here, Brent, for the upcoming update on 2.4 that Bungie gave us a look into. And some of the stuff's interesting that I didn't realize that they were doing. So the Broadsword quest, Valor rank resets will now look at previous season's accomplishments as well. So 5 Valor resets are required during a single season, but this is no longer restricted to the current season. If a player has 5 Valor resets in Season 4, for example, this will now grant progress toward the quest. So that's interesting. If you've done 5 Valor resets or more in the past, that will apply to the quest retroactively. Various issues were fixed where the quest was not progressing to the pickup step until a player re-entered orbit. So as we talked about, that should be fixed. When you finish the Broadsword, you'll be able to actually get the Broadsword. Enhancement cores fixed an issue that prevented enhancement cores from being awarded when reaching Legend in Valor and Glory ranks. So that will be fixed. Now, this is something I did not know was coming, Brent, and what they're doing with grenade launchers here. This could significantly affect the Mountaintop quest, for instance. So tweaked grenade launcher projectiles to feel more consistent on direct hits. Proximity grenades can no longer impact directly. This prevents special ammo grenade launchers from one-shotting with the perk active. So that's interesting. So if I'm reading this correctly, and I might not be, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like grenade launchers with proximity grenades will no longer be able to one-hit kill enemies. Is that what you're gleaning from this?
Yeah, that's. Read it again. Read it again. Read it again.
So proximity grenades can no longer impact directly, meaning if I shoot an enemy with a proximity grenade and I'm just dead to rights and hit them like right center mass, I no longer get some type of like direct impact bonus, presumably. This prevents special ammo grenade launchers from one-shotting with the perk active. So right now, Brent, proximity grenades, I look for that on every grenade launcher I pick up, because what it does is when it senses, the whole point of the perk, when it senses a target around it, it explodes. So if you don't have a direct shot at your enemy, but you're close, you're gonna get that damage on them, and a lot of times you get that kill. So this could be a very significant impact on grenade launchers if that's the case.
Would you even use that grenade launcher? Would that even be a point of focus?
I don't know, because if proximity grenades can no longer one-shot kill, that's then we start looking at like spike grenades, which do have direct impact damage. So maybe that's the perk that we all start going after. So it's all going to depend on how this all plays out. So that could be a potentially game-changing perk change there, Brent.
I'd like to see them go a little deeper on that at some point.
Yeah, definitely curious about that. Increased ammo reserve size with special ammo grenade launchers, and increase the initial spawn ammo in PvE for special ammo grenade launchers. So, some interesting stuff going on with special ammo grenade launchers. Which could be good, could be bad. I don't know. Very, very curious to see.
We're going to hear about that on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be some talk about that one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So that is kind of like the main crux of update 2.1.4. But there's also some stuff going on with Black Armory.
Yep. With
2.1.4. And there's some very interesting stuff in here, Brent. So specifically, this is what's looking to change with Black Armory and the Forges. Ballistics logs will no longer be removed at reset.
Thank God.
Goodness. I mean, geez. Thanks for letting us keep our hard-earned logs now. The stack limit for ballistics logs has increased to 5 per character.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so not only do you get to keep them, but you can hold up to 5 of them in your inventory. Weapon frames carried across reset now refund into the following. Gold frames will be refunded into 1 ballistic log. Silver frames will be refunded into 3 modulus reports. Any instance of a radiant matrix will be removed on the weekly reset. Players should stop experiencing the issue where frames are missing from Ada's inventory on a week-to-week basis. Brent, I feel like you run into that every single week.
Dude, it's been 2 out of the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. Players, and this is important to note, with all of this, players may still only purchase up to 2 gold frames per week. So yes, you can store those ballistics logs, but you can still only purchase 2 gold frames per week. The drop rate for Black Armory lore has increased from 10% to 20%. This is a welcome change for people that are trying to complete their lore, because this Black Armory lore drops incredibly irregularly. I think I've got 1 piece of Black Armory lore at this point. It now requires a successful Forge Ignition for a chance to drop. So sounds like they're increasing the rate of drop on the lore, and they're tying it into Forge completions. Those all sound like good moves to me. The quest step that requires players to defeat a high-value target on Nessus will no longer require a player to land the final blow, as we talked about. Modulus reports and ballistics logs will now go to the postmaster if lost. The cap on modulus reports is still at 15 per account, and forge emblems will be awarded when completing a forge, no longer requiring a specific bounty to be completed. What do you think about all this stuff, Brett? Is this welcome changes to the Black Armory content?
Yes, the damn frames will stop disappearing. That's awesome. That's the most important thing. But the fact that you can carry over your ballistic logs is nice as well. I mean, yeah, you're still going to only be able to buy 2 a week, but it does allow you, hey, look, I didn't get a chance. I'm not going to have any time to be able to go and do a forge. I still have a ballistic log. I can buy this thing and go in there and knock it out. So you don't have to worry about, I mean, you're still going to want to do those bounties so you get them, but it'll be nice to be able to hop in on that reset, like, hey, I got one right now, let's go.
Yeah. And so that's like the main crux of what we're looking at with update 2.1.4. A lot of stuff here, Brent. Weapons, supers, black armory, issues with the game. A lot of stuff being looked at and fixed. I expect the patch notes on 2.1.4 to be quite extensive. Overall, though, what do you think about what we're seeing with this update here? Is this shaping up, do you think, be a significant update for the game? Could this realistically change the sandbox in a big way come Tuesday?
I think so. From a super perspective, yeah. Supers, we're going to start seeing people dip back into those old supers. I'm going to be looking at Golden Gun again for sure. I'm going to be getting back into that. So you're going to start seeing people. You're not going to see Blade Barrage and Nova Warp and just in Crucible. You just start to see more people start branching off, going back to the oldies but goodies, and they'll be relevant again. So that's awesome from a super perspective. In terms of weapons and the balancing, good to see Scout Rifles getting that love. Good to see Assault Rifles getting that love because, like I said, PvP is just predominantly dominated by Pulse Rifles, Telesto. You're going to start seeing some of these people going back into their vault and be like, hey, I still got it escapes me. The Assault Rifle we were talking about, the exotic.
The Cerberus or the Suros.
Suros. The Suros. Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna bring that back out. If that thing's going to get a buff where either the rapid fire portion of it or the high impact portion of it is going to get a buff, hell yeah, I'll use that thing again.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to get some of these other weapons or these other archetypes outside of Pulse Rifle, make them relevant again, especially Scout Rifles, man. I'm really happy to see Scout Rifles getting that love. And then obviously all the changes to the Black Army that we're seeing, quality of life changes. I think this is a good balancing update. We're going to start, it's going to get, we'll see more variety of the way that people are playing it. So I think this is a good update.
Yeah, I agree with you on all fronts, man. There's once again, while we might not have any like new strikes or any new like hard content in the game, there's a lot of changes on the back end of the game that could significantly change the way we play this game. So I'm very curious on Tuesday to jump in there and see what these changes are all about and how the game feels and if it plays differently and how much these changes affect stuff like the Telesto. Very, very curious to see how all of this plays out. Now, the one aspect of Tuesday's update we haven't touched on, Brent, and it's the one piece of content that's going to be new when it's all said and done, is the draw. The quest to achieve the last word once again in Destiny. So the last word is returning this Tuesday in a quest that looks to be pretty significant from the quest steps that I saw with the draw. So first and foremost, Brent, first order of business on Tuesday is to get started on this bad boy and try to get our hands on the last word. Talk to me about the last word, dude.
Look, man, when it comes to hand cannons, the Crimson's been my baby since the beginning. The Crimson is it's an evergreen hand cannon. It's highly effective in PvP and PvE. Its perks are invaluable. And, I'm looking forward to hopping in there and trying to go for a new hand cannon that I can try out to replace. I don't know if it'll replace it, but complement the Crimson nicely. No, I'm looking forward to going in there. How does this, what do the steps look like, boys? Were there any standout steps that you're like, that'll take some work?
I don't remember all of them, but I believe there was like 10 steps to the quest. So it's a pretty lengthy quest. And I believe there's some missions in there as well. So there's going to be some actual missions that we get to go on as a part of this quest.
Do we have PvP elements to it?
I believe there's some in there. There's PvE and PvP elements in there for this gun. So it seems like it's going to be a nice beefy quest. So I'm curious to see how it all plays out. There's I think you're hunting some type of like a taken general or something throughout a few aspects of this quest. So there's some interesting looking stuff. I read the quest steps several weeks ago now, so they're not fresh in my mind, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty meaty quest. So definitely curious to hop in here on Tuesday and see what it's all about.
I love when they add those little missions in there, those nice little missions to kind of break things up a little bit. So and there's always some of those missions can actually be pretty fun. Like you're like, oh man, that was actually a pretty good mission. So that's cool, and they kind of slip those in there to break up the typical quest grind.
Yeah. But I wholeheartedly expect to see Last Word all over the Crucible.
Yeah.
Come next week. Obviously, that's its primary function first and foremost, at least in Destiny 1.
Tipsy just threw out a quest line or like a quest step that would just get me to give up on the gun altogether. It says you are required to use a warlock for a whole week. I would just shard that quest step.
Tipsy.
I would shard that thing in a second. Like, nope, never gonna use it.
Wow.
I'd feel so dirty. Ugh.
Just going below the belt here on Tower Talk.
Cool, I'll be a warlock and go into Crucible and get my ass handed to me all the time when I pop any of my weak ass supers. Cool. No, I'm good.
If you don't know what you're doing, that's certainly going to be the case.
Okay.
But if you're a master warlock player like somebody on this show,
Jesus.
then that type of stuff is irrelevant.
Man,
but
look what you did, Tipsy. Look what you did.
just going for the jugular. You're on Tower Talk. So, but yeah, dude. So, item number one next week is get the last word. So we are definitely going to hop into that and see what that's all about. A few other things that we want to touch on here. Mayhem is returning. So obviously this goes hand in hand with buffing the new supers. Bungie's like, hey, why not put Mayhem out there so you can try out all these new supers? Makes sense. So also on Tuesday going live is Mayhem, which is, if you haven't played it, it's a super fun mode. There's heavy ammo everywhere. All of your abilities recharge at an insane rate. Primarily your super. So literally you're just casting your super like every 5 to 10 seconds, and it's a good time. So get in there, experience Mayhem, and have a good time with that. I'll certainly be in there at some point.
There's always one asshole in a game of Mayhem that's running around with tractor cannon.
Always one.
And you're just like, dude, come on, man. God, that annoys the hell out of me.
It's super annoying. Yeah, when you get those suppressive supers or those suppressive weapons, it's bad. So if you are that guy that runs around with tractor cannon, do not play when we're online, please. Also to note here is Crimson Days, originally scheduled for February 5th, has been shifted out a week, so it will now start on February 12th. So February 12th through February 19th, Crimson Days will be active. And Bungie does mention that if you missed out on things, or if there are things you wanted to get in Crimson Days that you have not gotten yet, you'll be able to get them this year. There will also be new rewards exclusive to this event as well, and new ways of obtaining them. So while they say it's going to be very similar to last year's event, there's going to be some different things with this one as well come February 12th. So I'll be interested to check that out. Other than that, Brent, that's going to do it for this episode of Tower Talk. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. You're all set for update 2.1.4 now. And I'm really looking forward to hopping in on Tuesday, man. Not only to, of course, chase after the last word, but to experience some of these sandbox changes that realistically could potentially really change the way that this game plays come Tuesday.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna load up the Legend of Acreus. I'm gonna bring out the Suros, and we'll try out all these weapons, try out all the supers, try out everything just to get a good feel for it. Kind of get our thoughts on it, and then we'll be back Thursday to really break it down and share our opinions on it. So we'll be playing a lot next week. There'll be a lot of stuff going on. We'll be streaming Wednesday night. So really looking forward to that, and we'll be testing all this stuff out, and then we'll be right back here next Thursday to talk about the changes and what we think of them so far.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. So if you like what we do here on Tower Talks, subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. We appreciate that. Obviously, we love you guys jumping in the chat, being a part of the show. If you're not part of the show live, no worries. You can leave some comments in the comments section. We'd be happy to hear from you that avenue as well. Brent, you want to give a final shout-out to everybody in the chat today?
Oh, yeah. VX Insanity said, good show, guys. Now, if I can only get Phoenix Protocol and Anarchy to drop. If only. If only.
If only.
Badass Lord Titsy, he stopped by. Jacob was in here earlier. Really appreciate you guys stopping by. Those of you that tune in live, we really appreciate it. And everyone else that watches after the fact on demand, we appreciate you as well. Give a thumbs up if you like the video. Comment, share your thoughts. If you like some of these buffs, if you don't like some of these buffs, sound off, man. We'll check the comments. If you raise some good points, we'll talk about them next week. But we want to hear from you. But we appreciate you guys that stop in live during the show. Really means a lot to us. You guys always provide some good input, some good laughs, and we can't thank you enough for being here. So thank you.
Absolutely. And tell your friends. You got some Destiny friends? Tell them to come watch Tower Talk.
We can make fun of Boys and the Warlocks together. Come on.
No, not for that. Just not for that. it's to enjoy the game of Destiny, not to make fun of the ultimate class in the game, the Warlock. So
let's wrap it up.
Before the show gets out of hand, yeah, I think that's about it. Follow us on Twitter at the Short Pause. www.shortpause.com is the website. All that fun stuff. But that's gonna do it for us. For Brent, I'm Ben. Thanks for watching the show. We'll see you guys next week. And in the game,
possibly tomorrow night.
Possibly if Anthem works, maybe we can play the damn game. So
we'll see.
Maybe.
Stay tuned to our follow us on follow us on Twitter. Make sure you hit the little bell. If we're going live tomorrow night, we'll log in. We'll see if we can get in. If we can get in, we'll go live. We'll play some Anthem for you guys and girls. But thanks again for watching, everybody. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you next Thursday.
Have a good night.